signals the change in services from the Army to the Air Force, and it's great to be able to welcome into commentary Flight Lieutenant Rob Hodson, who can give us an insight into operations at Amberley.
Look, always steady. It's always a big time at Amberley, no matter what year it is or what time of year. Very steady. But we've got a lot of aviators here today, 1,200, which is 400 more than last year. So for various reasons, we've got up there. On the screen at the moment, you'll see Group Captain Nielsen leading the aviators through. She's the Chief of Staff of Combat Support Group, who are quickly following through. Very respected officer, Group Captain Nielsen.
And there has been such an expansion on the base at Amberley over recent years, hasn't there?
There has, and it's getting bigger as we speak. A lot of work there. It's a super base. It's the largest base in Australia, I believe, by personnel numbers. Lots of Army out there too. And it's, it gets bigger and bigger. So
here we have Combat Support Group, who are marking a particular anniversary this year.
Sure are. It's the 25th anniversary of the group which are coming through now. It's our largest force element group. They've got well over 5,000 aviators in it. Air Force can't do anything without the Combat Support Group. We basically supply all sorts of fixed base and expeditionary combat support and health. So these guys coming through now from their HQ, they certainly have a major role in what CSG does. And right now you're seeing 95 Wing, which is one of the wings of Combat Support Group. Just a small group. That's the HQ. You'll see more of their units coming through in a minute, Craig. Well,
we have the #1 Combat Communications Squadron here as well. From humble beginnings of just 12 staff in 65, it's grown to a pretty large unit these days.
Yeah, as the name suggests, they're communications, so they give us like assured and secure network operations, no matter where we are around the world. So yeah, very important element. Communications obviously is very important to all the services.
And does that include, out on operations, Rob?
Sure does. One CCS, as we call them, this year they had. Well, at the moment, they've even got some troops working with Operation Accordion. That's the 80th mission to support ADAF activities in the Middle East. So they're supplying combat support for that. This coming through now is 2 Security Forces Squadron. The Berets give it away. They're the Air Force's Army, I guess you could call them. They look after domestic and overseas operations, making sure we're safe. They're the bad guys, really, or the good guys.
The good guys.
Well, you're on,
yeah. When you're on our side, they're the good guys, aren't they? Yeah. So airbase security, effectively?
Airbase security and expeditionary security. If we're going to send in aircraft overseas to places which might offer an unsecure environment, some of those guys will go along, and they did some of that last year, going to places where there was riots in the streets of certain countries, bringing in supplies, and just to ensure that the aviators who are on the aircraft and the whatever we're bringing there gets safely looked after.
Yeah, and Rob Hodson, I know they also had quite the role when the stealth bombers from the US were at Amberley.
That's right. We were lucky enough to have a flight of stealth bombers, B-2 Spirit stealth bombers from the USAF with us last year for about a month or 5 weeks, and they're the sort of aircraft you really need to keep an eye on. So we had a 24-hour presence, and so 2 SecFor were working with the USAF security. As we do with a lot of USAF, we generally do a lot of stuff together, and just to ensure that the aircraft were, safe and sound.
They were quite impressive aircraft to see in the sky for those who might live close to Amberley and had a glimpse of those B-2 Spirit stealth bombers when they were here in Australia. Might be able to hear the sounds of the Emmanuel College Highlanders at UQ, accompanying elements from the Royal Australian Air Force down Adelaide Street here in Brisbane today as part of ANZAC Day 2023.
Come up now, Craig is headquarters 96 Wing, I believe, and 23 Squadron after, yes, that looks like, that's right, there's a 23 Squadron CO right there on screen right now. So 23 Squadron, the City of Brisbane Squadron, the largest group we've got marching today. They basically run Amberley Air Base. Everything that happens there can't happen without these guys. Air movements, ground movements, health, training, catering, they make sure it's an efficient base and it's running, you know, top trim.
Well, that's it. The squadron was relocated to Archerfield in August 1939, has the distinction of being the first RAAF squadron to be based in Queensland. And then, of course, when the base was established where it is now in Amberley.
Yeah, that's something they don't forget as well. They take the fact that they're 23 City of Brisbane squadron very seriously. They're very proud of their history.
Or you see the City of Brisbane flag being flown.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a privilege they're given, and they take it very seriously. Just point out Air Commodore Patterson up there with her excellency on the stage. Air Commodore Patterson is the commander of Combat Support Group. 23 Squadron is one of his units, so he'd be very proud to see them walking past today.
Oh, most definitely. And when we call them our own, the City of Brisbane Squadron, they are known as. They have also played a pretty critical role in supporting the airbase operations from Amberley in that supply of not just military, but then humanitarian aid to the likes of Ukraine too, as I understand it, Rob.
Yes, they have. We've obviously been supplying assistance to Ukraine in the form of humanitarian and military aid, and a lot of that's gone out of RAAF base Amberley, and particularly air movements. 23 Squadron have had a big job in ensuring the safe loading and secure loading of whatever we're sending over there, whether it's humanitarian aid or bushmasters or the like. You
might have just seen a picture there. I might see a couple of the military working dogs who are also part of number 23 Squadron.
Yeah, here they come. This obviously 23 Squadron has a security role as well these days, and that involves military working dogs. Here they are now.
Do you have their names at all, Rob?
Yeah, some of them. We've got Sigma, Ugra, Olive, Gorner, Bodie, Bernie, and Extreme.
You did well there. Well done.
I love my dogs.
Very well done.
Dogs.
The Greater Brisbane Wind Ensemble, formerly the Laurie Young Band. You might remember hearing in previous iterations of the ANZAC Day Parade here in Brisbane. They have been a big part of our commemorations for many years under the leadership of Major Laurie Young, who has recently passed. But the band continuing that great tradition. Here we have the headquarters of the Health Services Wing at RAAF.
We do, Craig. We've got their combined units here. Health Services Wings responsible for deployable operational health, plus base health and expeditionary health. They've got 3 units walking through here with them. The 1 expeditionary health squadron, 3 aeromedical evacuation squadron, and the health operation conversion unit. They keep us safe and sound when we're away or we're on base. Doctors, nurses, aeromedical evacuation kind of speaks for itself. If we're going on operation, they come with us. If we're doing stuff anywhere, they come with us. There's great respect for these guys marching through right now from all units, for sure. Very handy guys to have around to keep you fighting as best you can.
Yeah, and fit and healthy. That's the thing, and how they are. We were speaking with the Army about field hospitals. It's a similar story with the RAAF and that ability to deploy mobile hospitals too.
Yeah, that's right. You know, we always set up a hospital wherever we go, and I also mentioned 3 aeromedical evacuation squadron who are coming through now. Their role is to basically set up hospitals in aircraft like C-17s or C-130s. So if there's some sort of disaster overseas somewhere or some situation where we need to evacuate people out, these guys are ready to go. They've always practiced up and they're all ready to go. You know, if heaven forbid there's some issue which requires people to be evacuated back to Australia.
Highly trained, highly specialised, and a proud part of the Royal Australian Air Force based at Amberley, as the contingent of aviators and other staff make their way down Adelaide Street in Brisbane, past City Hall, which you see in the background in the CBD. And it's not just the stealth bombers that I know were visiting Amberley in the past 12 months. There's also, is it the Antonov, which is this massive cargo plane?
Yes.
Well, there's probably a better technical term for it than that, by the way.
That probably says a lot. Anyway, Antonov is a company. It was a Soviet company, but it was based in the Ukraine. They make very large aircraft. The Antonov 124, it's the largest military aircraft in the world these days as far as capacity goes, and that was chartered by the Ukrainian government from a private organisation to pick up our humanitarian aid and our military supplies, which we're sending through to there. So you'd see it come in. It's a big aircraft. No one speaks English on it, except maybe up the flight deck. Even for me, looking at it compared to the C-17 Globemaster, your jaw drops.
In terms of size. Yeah.
Big and loud. So.
Incredible. The St. Peter's Lutheran College from Indooroopilly, their band, going around for, I think that must be their second time as well, and this Anzac Day parade for 2023. It's lovely to see so many students involved in the parade and playing their role to keep everyone in time as they march. We have the 33 Squadron from the RAAF.
Here they come now.
Tell us a little about their role, Rob.
Sure, they fly the KC-30A multi-role tanker. It's a heavily modified Airbus bus A330, which is used for air-to-air refuelling and strategic airlift. Last 12 months, they've been pretty much everywhere we go. They just give us the legs to go places. So they will travel down to Antarctica with the resupply missions to refuel our aircraft heading down that way. All over Europe, if the Prime Minister wishes to travel to a major event overseas, they're often involved in that. So there's also an element of VIP to what they do. Yeah, that's a great aircraft. We're the lead user of the KC-30, and now a lot of air forces are using it as well. Probably noticeably France, it's an Airbus, it's a French aircraft, but we started using it first, and now the French are learning off us how to use a French aircraft. Great relationship we have with the French. Yeah,
and so would they have been involved? I know there was a massive Air Force exercise, Pitch Black, last year.
Yes.
Those refuelling aircraft, certainly a key role there too.
Working out of Amberley, yep, long hours in the chair for those guys. They were looking at 12, 15-hour days refuelling. We've moved on to 36 Squadron now, I believe. This looks like 36 to me.
Yeah, you're just trying to read the banner as well here.
My best, but 36 Squadron fly the C-17s.
Oh, that's the Globemaster, yeah, who you might see in Brisbane around Riverfire time. They've been a part of that. Incredible aircraft. One goes pretty much directly over my place as part of that each and every year. The noise that it generates is out of this world.
It's noisy, but that's what you need to have capacity of load.
Yeah. Here we have 35 Squadron.
Yeah, this is a great unit coming through, 35 Squadron. Their tempo is absolutely non-stop. Everyone's busy, but those guys just are absolutely everywhere flying the C-27J Spartan.
Oh, yeah. So what sort of role does it play?
It's a sort of a medium tactical transport aircraft, so we can get into places that other aircraft can't. So, like, for instance, earlier this year, there were floods in the Victoria River region in Northern Territory.
Yes.
And they were basically the only aircraft could get in to evacuate people from those communities. So we're bringing them back to near Catherine. So, and when that was happening as well, I know that they were almost tapped to head off to Vanuatu because it happened at the same time as the cyclones hit Vanuatu. So there was a potential that they were going straight from the Northern Territory to another task in Vanuatu. But that's the way they roll, 35 Squadron. They're just ready to go wherever's needed.
Yeah, it sounds like it's constant role that they have, as it is for most, whether it be RAAF units, Army units, or units attached to the Royal Australian Navy.
Absolutely.
But that is a true indication as to how busy they can be.
Yeah, you got that right. So.
And that's the Salvation Army Band, formed in 2009, I should say. This is the Carindale Salvation Army Band, from the Carina, Cooperi, West End and Mount Gravatt Salvos bands that date back to 1914, coming together, and you see them marching proudly today. And the other thing, so as we move from serving members of the Royal Australian Air Force to Air Force associations, there's even like a squadron, the 452 Squadron, that I know responsible for delivering the likes of air traffic control, and just to give people a sense as to who is based at Amberley and what work they are able to do. You see the number 23, or Cydia Brisbane Squadron Association. The banner lists the squadron's battle honours, including New Guinea, Eastern Waters, Pacific, Borneo. While on patrol over the approaches to the Brisbane River, 2 Wirraways conducted the first attack against an enemy submarine on the east coast of Australia. So a bit of history associated with the number 23 Squadron Association. Graham Mackelman, who was a reserve fighter pilot in the 1950s, is also remembered today as the TAA DC-9 captain, who was awarded the Star of Courage after an armed hijacker attempted to take control of his aircraft over the Brisbane CBD in 1979. Here's the RAAF, Airfield Defence Association of Australia. And if you look at their banner, it does have the Ground Combat Badge, which was awarded by the Chief of Air Force in 2014 for their role in all conflicts from World War I to present. The badge takes pride of place on their banner. Originally formed as Guards, RAAF Guards, the Royal Australian Air Force Airfield Defence role was a specialised ground defence force designed to stop all infiltrators getting into mortar or rocket range of air bases. Here's the No. 2 Squadron Association, formed in Egypt in 1916, then sent to the Western Front in France and Belgium. The No. 2 Squadron is the only RAAF squadron to have battle honours from 4 wars: World War I, World War II, the Malaysian Confrontation and the Vietnam War.
We've had a flyover early today from No. 2 Squadron wedge-tail aircraft as well. You might
yeah, so they're surveillance aircraft these days?
They are. They're surveillance aircraft, I guess you could call them, with our surveillance response group. I saw one fly over before. Not quite as loud as the Super Hornets, though.
The No. 3 Squadron Association. And just a little bit of history here. In 1918, the pilots of the No. 3 Squadron on a photographic mission were attacked by 4 German fighters led by the famous Red Baron. Despite the fact that these German pilots were the elite of the German Air Force, the lumbering Australian reconnaissance machine, you could describe them as, drove them off. And looking for easier pickings, the Red Baron made the mistake of descending to low level over the ANZAC front line, where he was then shot down. Wow, incredible story, isn't it? At the outbreak of World War II, the squadron was deployed to the Middle East and spent the entire war in the Mediterranean theatre. There is evidence that the 3rd Squadron was the Kitty Hawk Squadron that attacked German ground forces in Tunisia in 1943 and caused severe injuries to Klaus von Stauffenberg, who would, the following year, attempt to assassinate Adolf Hitler as part of a failed coup against the Nazi regime. The research and the history that you discover as part of the Anzac Day Parade and the work of the No. 3 Squadron. This is the No. 9 Squadron Association, formed in 1939.
Yeah, No. 9 Squadron, initially we're a maritime support squadron working with Navy. You can see on their banner going through now the Seagull aircraft on your left.
Yes.
They moved on to UH-1 Huey or Iroquois helicopters after that. Cool. So they were our last serving helicopter unit in Australia, in the Royal Australian Air Force. It's only Navy and Army who have helicopters these days.
Yeah, and heavily involved in the Battle of Long Tan, doing some pretty hazardous resupply missions to D Company of 6 RAR. Have the No. 35 Squadron, the Transport Flight Vietnam Association here as well.
That's the Caribou on the front there. That aircraft is probably the best aircraft we've ever had in the Air Force for the suitability to roll. We could barely replace the thing. It took a long time, but now we've got the Spartan, which is doing a smashing job too. Yeah,
known as Wallaby Airlines for their work that they were involved with during the Vietnam days.
Yeah, that comes from the badge, the unit's badge, which has a Wallaby on the front of it. So it's a bit of an obvious one, that one, but they wear it with pride these days. They, like I said, they remember their history, these people. So
that's right. Bayside Brass. The vibrant blue uniforms are pretty distinctive. A traditional brass band that originated as the Wynnum Manly Citizens Band, dating back to the 1930s. Might have seen them perform regularly around Brisbane. And here's the No. 38 Squadron Association. Established in 1943, operational until 2018, with the motto, equal to the task. It was flying the Douglas C-47 Dakotas on transport operations in New Guinea during World War II. And in the immediate post-war period, those Dakotas were providing a thrice weekly air link between Australia and Japan in support of the British Commonwealth Occupational Force. And here we have the 476, 463 Squadron Association, along with the 460, the 466 and 462 Squadrons Associations as well. So Winston Churchill, in September of 1940, said this quote: "The Navy can lose us the war, but only the Air Force can win it. The fighters are our salvation, but the bombers alone provide the means of victory." These are the bomber squadrons that he was referring to. Tell us a little bit about 460 Squadron, Rob.
Yes, certainly. Our 460 Squadron, it flew more raids than any other Australian squadron in the war, and yeah, credited with dropping, I think it was over 24,000 tonnes of bombs. And look, the number of aircraft lost was too many, and they lost over 1,000 lives. I realised that as well. So it's, you know, that about 60% of them were Australian, young Australians.
Very young indeed.
Yeah, young. Yeah, 22 I think was the average age, but it was